John. The alarm blared its usual tune at 6 o'clock a.m., signaling the start of another day. Jessica, my wife, and I reluctantly rose from bed, greeted by the early morning light. I let out a groan, feeling the weight of fatigue as I sat up and swung my legs over the edge. "What's with the dramatics? You sound like you're ancient," Jessica teased, making her way to the bathroom. "After what you put me through last night, I might as well be," I retorted with a smirk, reminiscing about the evening's escapades. She certainly knew how to keep things interesting. Today marked the beginning of Jessica's business trip, leaving me to fend for myself for the week ahead. The thought didn't exactly fill me with enthusiasm. As the sound of the shower filled the room, I briefly considered joining her before deciding against it. Last night had taken its toll, and I needed a moment to recover. Jessica returned to the bedroom with an air of energy, contrasting sharply with my own sluggish demeanor. "Come on, sleepyhead. Time to rise and shine. We've got bills to pay," she urged, nudging me playfully. All right. I'm getting there," I mumbled, dragging myself to the bathroom for some much-needed revitalization. Eventually, we reconvened downstairs for breakfast before parting ways, Jessica off to the airport and me to the daily grind of work. Jessica, an attorney, and I both held positions at a medium-sized manufacturing plant in St. Louis. Her expertise lay in negotiations, often traveling with teams for off-site work, such as this trip to Denver to negotiate a new subcontract with a major aerospace firm. These negotiations occurred several times a year, each trip spanning at least a week. At 35, Jessica had graduated cum laude from the State University 12 years prior. With her striking appearance, standing at 5'4" and weighing 125 pounds, adorned with feminine attributes measuring 34, 24, 35, I found myself utterly enamored by her charm and allure. I'm John Baker, an engineer at the same company as my wife. Aged 37, I stand at 6'1" and maintain a weight of 165 pounds through regular workouts. Jessica and I share a passion for golf, often forming a foursome with friends. Our love story began at a company picnic, where I instantly knew she was the one for me. Evidently, the feeling was mutual as we embarked on a whirlwind courtship and tied the knot 6 months later. Now 7 years into our marriage, we recently purchased our dream home 3 months ago, a place where we envisioned starting our family. Jessica planned to transition into a role as a stay-at-home mom once our children reached school age. With both sets of parents residing nearby, the anticipation of our starting a family was palpable. Jessica intended to discontinue her birth control pills upon returning from this trip, as we eagerly awaited the next chapter of our lives together. After breakfast, I helped Jessica load her travel bag into her car and bid her farewell with a kiss. Tears welled in her eyes as she settled into the driver's seat. "Hopefully, I won't have to endure these goodbyes much longer, sweetheart. I long for the day when I won't have to travel," she lamented. "I hate these goodbyes just as much as you do, honey," I reassured her. "I'll see you on Friday evening, and we'll keep it simple with takeout so you can rest." "Sounds good. Bye," she replied before driving off. I stood in the driveway, waving until her car disappeared from view, then trudged back into the house to finish my morning routine before heading to the office. Upon arrival at work, I made my way to the engineering department, grabbing a cup of coffee from the break room before settling in at my desk. Barely had I sat down when my phone rang. "Baker," I answered. "John, could you step into my office for a moment?" came the voice on the other end. "Sure, Hubert. I'll be right there," I replied, grabbing my coffee and making my way to my boss's office. As I entered, he gestured for me to take a seat. "John, I've got something that might interest you. Since Jessica's away this week, I remembered you mentioning it last Friday. Gerald Carter, our field service engineer in California, is out sick and unable to handle a problem a customer in San Jose is facing with one of our models. Given your extensive experience with that particular model, would you be interested in heading out to San Jose to check it out?" "Well, there's not much going on here right now, and you're right, I'm flying solo this week. So when do you need me out there?" "Right away. Let Lucy handle your reservations and tickets, and you can give the customer a call to let them know you're on your way and to gather more details about the issue. Sounds like a plan. I'll get on it immediately. Suddenly, I felt a surge of enthusiasm. I'll head home, pack up, catch a flight out this afternoon, and be at the customer's location by tomorrow morning. Great. Safe travels, Hubert replied, signaling the end of our conversation. I made a quick stop at Lucy's desk, briefing her on the flights and reservations I needed before heading to my own desk to call the customer and clarify their issue. With that done, I eagerly left for home to pack. A grin crept across my face as I drove, a plan forming in my mind. If I wrapped things up swiftly, I could surprise Jessica with a detour to Denver on my way back. The thought of spending a couple of unexpected days with her in Denver only fueled my excitement. At the airport, while waiting for my flight, I tried calling Jessica's cell phone, but she didn't answer. I left her a voicemail, informing her that I'd be staying with my folks for a couple of days and to reach me on my cell in the evenings. Everything proceeded smoothly. By Tuesday afternoon, I had resolved the customer's issue and had their equipment up and running satisfactorily. Afterward, I swiftly arranged a flight to Denver, scheduled to land at 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Checking out of my San Jose hotel, I made my way to San Francisco Airport, where I enjoyed dinner before my flight. During dinner, Jessica called my cell, and we exchanged a brief conversation. She inquired about my folks, and I responded as though I were with them. Jessica mentioned that negotiations were progressing but expressed her fatigue, planning to spend a quiet evening in her hotel room. After exchanging expressions of love, we bid farewell. Boarding my flight after dinner, I arrived at Jessica's suite hotel around 9:45 p.m. After confirming my identity, the hotel staff provided me with a key card for her suite. Entering her room quietly, I noticed a lamp illuminated over the computer table, with her laptop closed. However, Jessica was nowhere to be found. Perplexed, I set down my suitcase and checked the bedroom and bathroom, both of which were empty. I shrugged off the initial confusion, assuming Jessica hadn't returned to her room yet. I debated whether to wait or to check the lounge for her whereabouts. However, my attention was drawn to the slightly ajar door of the adjoining room. Approaching cautiously, the door swung open silently. Peering into the living room of the adjacent suite, I found it empty. Intrigued, I stepped inside, only to be startled by a sudden groan emanating from the bedroom. My stomach churned, and a cold sweat broke out as I tiptoed toward the bedroom door. My breath caught in my throat as I beheld the scene before me in the dimly lit room. There stood Jessica, completely nude, while an unidentified man lay on the bed, his face obscured from view. My initial instinct was to storm in and confront Jessica, to unleash my fury upon the man lying on the bed. Yet rationality prevailed over the surge of emotions, and I slowly retreated from the door, returning to Jessica's suite. Retrieving the digital camera I had brought along for capturing souvenirs, I recalibrated it for dim lighting and disabled the flash. With a composed demeanor, I approached the other bedroom door. Standing quietly, I discreetly captured several images of the scene unfolding on the bed, ensuring neither of them noticed my presence. Their obliviousness to their surroundings, consumed by their actions, allowed me to document the betrayal before me. Before departing Jessica's suite, I rifled through the open briefcase on the table and discovered a business card belonging to David Price, the chief negotiator for our company. I pocketed the card for future reference. Back in her suite, I connected my camera to her laptop using the camera/computer interface cable I always carried. With our laptops sharing the same photo program, transferring a picture from my camera to hers was a straightforward task. I set up the incriminating image as her desktop background before repacking my camera into my travel bag and silently exiting her suite. Struggling to contain my emotions, I fought back tears as I made my way to the elevator, the weight of betrayal heavy upon me. After returning the entry card to the front desk, I promptly contacted the airline to inquire about the next available flight back to St. Louis. Fortunately, there was a 6:30 a.m. flight that would have me home by 9:30 a.m. I calculated that this would coincide with the time Jessica typically opened her laptop at the negotiating table. It would serve as the moment she realized she had been caught, signaling the end of our marriage. I then made my way back to the airport and checked into a nearby motel. Despite my restless state, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. Instead, I replayed the distressing scene from Jessica's hotel room over and over in my mind, allowing myself to release my pent-up anguish through tears. By the time I left the motel at 5 a.m., I had cried myself empty, and my resolve was clear: to swiftly bring our marriage to an end. Upon my return to St. Louis, my cell phone began to ring as I got into my car. Glancing at the caller ID, I saw it was Jessica. Choosing to ignore the call, I turned off my phone and proceeded home. As I entered the house, the landline began to ring, and a quick glance at the caller ID confirmed it was Jessica again. Opting to let it go to the answering machine, I listened silently as her tearful plea echoed through the room. "John, please call me right away. I need to talk to you, honey. It's important." Ignoring Jessica's tearful pleas, I headed upstairs to change my clothes before going out to rent a U-Haul. Returning home, I swiftly began packing, aiming to vacate the house by the time Jessica arrived around 4 p.m. Within a couple of hours, I managed to relocate all my personal belongings to a rental storage unit. Prior to packing, I scheduled an appointment with our lawyer for that afternoon to initiate divorce proceedings. After unloading my belongings at the storage unit, I proceeded to the lawyer's office and requested immediate action to commence the divorce process. Though tempted to cite adultery as grounds, I opted for irreconcilable differences, reserving the former in case of a contentious divorce. Additionally, I instructed the lawyer to update my will, naming my brother as the sole beneficiary. Stopping at the bank, I transferred half of our savings and checking balances to new accounts solely in my name. I then contacted my investment advisor to execute similar actions on our joint investment accounts. With a heavy heart, I drove to my parents' house, suitcase in hand, and entered through the open door. Upon seeing me, my mother exclaimed in surprise, "John, where have you been? Jessica has been calling here several times looking for you. Did you tell her you were staying here?" Sitting down with my retired father, I explained the situation. They were shocked to hear about Jessica's infidelity and the impending end of our marriage. Seeking refuge, I asked if I could stay with them temporarily until I found a furnished apartment, to which they'd readily agreed. It seemed my estimation was quite accurate, as around 6 p.m., just as we were settling down for dinner, the doorbell chimed. My father rose to answer it, returning moments later with a visibly distressed Jessica trailing behind him. "John, why haven't you been answering my calls? I needed to talk to you. You've moved all your belongings out of the house," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "I would think the message I left you on your desktop would have provided all the information you needed," I replied calmly. "Oh, God, I was so afraid it was you. Can we please go somewhere and talk, sweetheart?" Jessica pleaded. "Jessica, I'm no longer your sweetheart, and there's nothing left for us to discuss. I've already initiated divorce proceedings, and anything that needs to be communicated can be handled through our lawyers. What I witnessed in Denver has shattered any feelings I had for you, and I need you to leave so I can finish my dinner," I stated firmly. "Please, John, don't do this without talking to me," she implored desperately. "What could you possibly say to justify your infidelity? It certainly wasn't an act of violence like the one I witnessed and have evidence of," I retorted, my tone unwavering. "You better call your lover, David, and inform him that I'll be dealing with him tomorrow. Perhaps his wife will have a different perspective on the matter than I do." "Oh, God, can't we talk?" "Please, John," Jessica pleaded, her voice trembling. "Please go, Jessica. My dinner is getting cold," I replied firmly. "But I'll offer you this. Why don't you take some time to write me a nice, long letter explaining how you rationalize breaking your wedding vows? I'm sure a lawyer as smart as you can articulate how it was all my fault and how you can still love and respect me very much." With a sob, Jessica turned away, but before she reached the door, she turned back to me. "Please, John, don't end our marriage without talking to me." "Goodbye, Jessica," I said, my tone resolute. After she left, still in tears, my parents remained seated, stunned by the exchange. "That was awfully harsh, John," my mother remarked. Mom, do you want to see the pictures I have of her and her lover? That's what's harsh, I replied bluntly. She completely disrespected me, and I can't live with that, nor can I ever trust her again. Do you want me to give you grandchildren from a woman like that? I understand, son, my father finally spoke up. Maybe if things calm down a little, you might see things differently. I don't think so, Dad. Let's talk about something else so I can finish my meal, I said, eager to change the subject. Okay, son, my father agreed reluctantly. Jessica. As I left home that Monday morning, a pang of sadness washed over me at the thought of leaving John behind. However, I couldn't help but feel excited about the prospect of starting a family together once I returned. We had waited patiently, ensuring that we were financially and professionally prepared to embark on this new chapter of our lives. Now, everything seemed to be falling into place. The journey to Denver passed without incident. I found myself seated beside David Price, our chief negotiator, with whom I shared a comfortable rapport. We briefly discussed the upcoming negotiations before delving into more personal topics, such as our families. David was aware of my plans to quit work upon becoming pregnant, and he expressed his sentiments about missing me once I took on the role of a full-time mother. At 48 and married for 2 decades with children in high school, David and I had formed a strong negotiating team long before my marriage. Our camaraderie was evident, and we were accustomed to each other's company. Meanwhile, the other 2 members of our team engaged in their own conversations behind us. Upon arrival at the hotel in Denver, David and I checked into our respective rooms, which were conveniently adjoining. This arrangement had initially been made to facilitate late-night meetings on negotiation strategies. However, about 10 years ago, our relationship took a different turn, and we convinced ourselves that engaging in intimacy was merely a means of relieving stress after a demanding day of negotiations. At the time, we rationalized that it wasn't considered cheating on his wife if it contributed to our professional success. Occasionally, we even joked about it. After John and I had been married for a couple of years, I began to feel uneasy about our intimate encounters with David, and we eventually ceased the activity. However, during a particularly stressful negotiation, David suggested revisiting our arrangement to alleviate tension. Reluctantly, I agreed, and before I knew it, I found myself drawn back into the affair. The excitement of the forbidden and the risk of being caught heightened my libido at home, which also seemed to benefit John, alleviating any guilt I may have felt. During this trip, we didn't connect on the first night as I felt tired after dinner. However, after a demanding day of negotiations, I agreed to meet with David the following evening. I'm unsure of how or when John discovered the truth or how he obtained the incriminating picture, but the following morning, when I opened my laptop, I was stunned into paralysis by what was displayed on the screen. David, seated beside me, reacted swiftly, slamming the lid shut and requesting a brief recess from the negotiations. We retreated to the hallway, where his anger was palpable. "What's that mess on your desktop?" he inquired. "I have no idea, David. It wasn't there the last time I used it," I replied, still taken aback. "Let me take a look." I reopened the laptop, and we examined the image together. "Oh no, that's you," he exclaimed. "Me? How is that possible?" "I'm not sure, but it's definitely you, and that figure beneath you is probably me, although my face isn't visible. Did you leave your laptop unattended at any point yesterday?" "No, it was with me during the trip and in my suite while I was visiting yours." "Could someone have accessed your room with a camera?" "I doubt it. The door was closed, and I assumed it was locked." "You need to return to the hotel and check if anyone was given access to your room last night. I'll handle things here. Try to contact John and find out his whereabouts last night." "It couldn't have been him. I spoke with him at his parents' house last night." "Did you call him on his parents' phone?" "No, he requested that I call his cell phone." "Oh, that's concerning. He could have been anywhere when you talked to him. Call me on my cell if you discover anything. Do whatever you can to mitigate this situation. Take a cab back to the hotel." "Okay, bye." I was drenched in sweat. If John was behind that picture on my laptop, it seemed like a clear message that our marriage was over. I needed to return to the hotel and gather more information. The receptionist hailed a cab for me, and within 15 minutes, I was back at the hotel. I headed straight to the front desk to inquire if anyone had accessed my suite. After checking the computer records, the clerk informed me that a Mr. John Baker had been issued a card at 9:45 the previous evening, which was returned half an hour later. It was then that the sinking realization hit me. My marriage was likely at its end. The man I cherished more than anything had vanished, but I resolved to fight to win him back. Ascending to my suite, I immediately tried calling John on his cell and at his workplace. His cell was switched off, but I left an urgent voicemail, stressing the importance of him contacting me as soon as possible. His secretary revealed that he was away on business in California and expected to return tomorrow. So, he had gone to California and perhaps stopped by on his way back to surprise me. It seemed we were both in for a surprise. Contacting his parents, they informed me they hadn't seen him for several days. I urged them to have him call me as soon as they reached him. Calling our home yielded no response, but I left a message there too, hoping he would get in touch soon. I sat alone in the suite, tears streaming down my face. Without a way to reach him except by returning home, I grabbed the phone and hastily made reservations for the next flight to St. Louis. After packing my belongings, I dialed David's number on my cell and relayed the latest developments. There was a solemn pause before he spoke. "Jessica, I fear we're both staring down the barrel of divorce, or even worse. Worse than divorce? What could that possibly be? Our company strictly prohibits relationships between employees at the managerial level. If this gets out, we could both be looking at termination. It wouldn't bode well for our careers. Oh my goodness, I should have realized, but losing John feels like the end of the world to me. Losing my family would be devastating too, but your priority now is to return to St. Louis and try to reason with John. See if you can salvage the situation. I've already booked a flight departing at noon. I should be back in St. Louis by 4:30. I need to find him and have a conversation. I'll keep you posted on how it unfolds. I'll have to remain here until the negotiations are concluded. I'll be eagerly awaiting your update." With our farewells exchanged, we hung up. Gathering my bag and laptop, I hastened down to the lobby, checked out, and utilized the hotel's limo service to reach the airport. Throughout the journey back to St. Louis, I prayed fervently, hoping to engage John in a conversation. I needed to clarify that it was just a physical encounter and held no emotional significance. I staked everything on the possibility that he could approach my infidelity rationally and accept it as nothing more than a meaningless act. Upon my return home, nothing seemed amiss initially. However, upon entering our bedroom, the absence of his clothes and personal belongings struck me. It was evident he knew and had left me. I had to locate him. After numerous unsuccessful phone calls, I resolved to visit his parents' house to ascertain his whereabouts or glean any insights they might have. Encountering him at his parents' place was gut-wrenching. His coldness and detachment were almost physically sickening. He delivered the news of his intention to file for divorce with a brutal lack of empathy, stating unequivocally that he had no interest in conversing with me, adamant that nothing I could say would alter his decision. His suggestion to write a lengthy letter detailing my perspective felt like a final twist of the knife before I excused myself and retreated to my car, where I succumbed to tears. The future we had envisioned together crumbled before my eyes. The family we had dreamed of building would never materialize. We would never share the joys of growing old together or revel in the delights of grandchildren. Amidst my personal despair, a selfish fear gnawed at me, the prospect that by the time I found another partner, I might be too old to conceive. Eventually, I mustered the strength to start the car and drive back to our now desolate home, engulfed by a profound sense of loss and uncertainty. John. After a fitful night filled with unsettling visions of Jessica and David intertwined, I rose early and made my way downstairs in my parents' home to brew some coffee. With a heavy heart, I retrieved my laptop and camera, determined to sift through the images stored in the camera. My mind fixated on the need to identify David in those pictures somehow. As I scrolled through the images, David's face remained frustratingly indistinct. However, my perseverance paid off when I noticed a detail on his right arm as it reached towards Jessica's chest. Zooming in, I discerned what I was searching for: a tattoo. Further enlargement revealed it to be a heart with the name Janet inscribed within it. Janet was David's wife. With this damning evidence in hand, I returned upstairs, showered, and prepared for work. When I descended again, my mother was already bustling about preparing breakfast. At work, I wasted no time. I burned a couple of CDs containing the incriminating photos and a blown-up image of David's tattoo. Additionally, I printed several sets and assembled them all into a folder. With resolve coursing through me, I strode to the Human Resources Department and requested to see the manager, Chad. We were acquainted, having crossed paths in our relatively small company and even shared a round of golf together. Placing a set of pictures from my folder in front of him, I awaited his reaction. "What's this, John? Pornographic pictures?" Chad's expression was a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Sorry, Chad, they may seem explicit, but that's my wife and David Price. As you can see from the date and timestamps, they were taken Tuesday evening in David's hotel suite in Denver. They were there for a negotiation trip on behalf of the company." "Oh, damn, John. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you want to do about it?" "You can terminate both of them for cause under the anti-fraternization clause in their contracts with the company. We've never enforced that before. Are you certain you want to proceed? It'll expose this affair to everyone. And does this mean you're pursuing a divorce from Jessica?" "I've already instructed my lawyer to start drafting the papers, but if you choose not to act on this, I'll have no choice but to take legal action against the company." "Okay, John. I'll bring this to our legal department and initiate the process." Afterward, I went to speak with my boss, Hubert, to update him on the tumult in my personal life. He reacted appropriately, expressing shock and concern at the revelation regarding my wife and David Price. When I requested the remainder of the week off as vacation time, he readily granted it. Before parting ways, he commended me for a job well done during my trip to California. He relayed positive feedback from the customer, praising my swift resolution of their issue and the prompt restoration of their production line. Additionally, he floated the idea of me taking over the California territory, as the current field engineer was retiring due to health reasons. I promised to give it consideration and provide him with my decision upon my return to work the following week. As I exited Hubert's office, his secretary, Lucy, intercepted me. "John, your wife was here looking for you. She mentioned she would return later." "Lucy, under no circumstances do I want to see my wife. Please convey this to her when she returns." "Oh, John, I'm so sorry. I had no idea there was an issue." "There's a big problem, Lucy. We're getting divorced. She and David Price have been doing the horizontal tango." I anticipated that word would spread throughout the plant by noon. Lucy had a penchant for gossip. Returning to my desk, I dialed Janet Price, David's wife. Although we had crossed paths at company picnics, I knew that my revelations about our spouses could weigh heavily on her. "Janet, it's John Baker." "How are you, John? David mentioned you might be getting in touch, but he didn't say why." "Janet, we need to talk as soon as possible." "Of course, John. Can you come over now?" "I have a hair appointment at 1 o'clock this afternoon, but I'm free at the moment." "Do you still reside on Fremont?" "Yes, that's right." "All right, I know where you live. I'll be there in 15 minutes." Arriving at the Prices, a sense of apprehension washed over me as I contemplated the task ahead. I knew I couldn't let David evade the consequences, leaving Jessica to bear the brunt alone. "Hi, John. Come on in. Would you like some coffee?" "I just brewed a fresh pot," Janet offered, gesturing towards the living room. "That would be great, Janet. Just black, please." Returning shortly with the coffee, she settled into a chair opposite me. "Now, what's all this about?" she inquired. I briefly entertained the idea of delivering the news gently, but ultimately opted for a direct approach, eager to get it over with. "Janet, I have to tell you something difficult. I caught your husband and my wife together in Denver, and I'm in the process of divorcing Jessica and having them both terminated from their jobs. I hate to be the bearer of such news, but it's going to become public knowledge soon, and I wanted to prepare you. I have photographic evidence to support what I'm saying, if you want to see. I observed her closely, trying to gauge her reaction, but was taken aback by her lack of visible emotion. John, I suppose I've had my suspicions about David's behavior during his business trips for some time now, although I always hoped they weren't true. David has always been a loving husband and father, and I didn't want to confront the possibility. But I realized that eventually something would come to light, exposing their affair. I suppose this is it. I'm truly sorry for what you're going through with your marriage, and from my own perspective, I'm sorry for the potential consequences for David. He's reaching an age where finding another job with comparable pay could prove challenging. Now, I have to figure out what to do next. Would you like a set of the photographs I have? I offered. Yes, please leave them. I'll gather the courage to look at them, Janet replied quietly. I'm truly sorry, Janet. I couldn't let this slide. Jessica and I were on the brink of starting a family, but I can't build a future with someone I can't trust or respect. The mother of our children needs both of those qualities, I explained, my voice heavy with sorrow. I understand, John. Thank you for being honest with me. I wouldn't want to hear about it from anyone else first, and let me reiterate how sorry I am about what you're going through with Jessica. I'm sure she's just as devastated and regretful as David will be when he discovers that I'm aware of his affair. I only wish it were a one-time mistake. It would be easier to forgive. But I fear it's been ongoing for years, and that's a bitter pill to swallow now that it's out in the open. I have my pride, and I need to hold my head up high, Janet expressed, her voice tinged with a mixture of sadness and resolve. If there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to let me know. I offered sincerely as I prepared to leave and make my way back to my parents' house. Epilogue. It's been half a year since I initiated the divorce proceedings. This morning, I received the finalized agreement, officially ending my marriage to Jessica. I hadn't spoken to her or laid eyes on her since the day she visited my parents' house. My lawyer handled everything. In the settlement, I relinquished the heavily mortgaged house along with its financed furniture and furnishings to sever all ties with her. Additionally, I had my name removed from the mortgage, leaving her solely responsible for the payments. Without a steady income, she had no choice but to put the house up for sale, ultimately taking a significant financial hit in the process. Initially, she attempted to contest the divorce, but I issued an ultimatum. Either sign the papers within 48 hours, or I would amend the grounds for divorce to adultery and release the incriminating pictures of her and David online. Under pressure, she acquiesced within the stipulated time frame, and that's why I'm a free man today. It seems she decided that she didn't want me badly enough after all. Although she lost her job as a consequence, Jessica, being a shrewd lawyer and negotiator, managed to secure a new position within a month. It may not offer the same salary or benefits as her previous role, but I hear she's managing to get by and has even started dating again. Best of luck to her new boyfriend, whoever he may be. I can't help but wonder if she's disclosed the details of our divorce and the reasons behind it to him. Perhaps I should enlighten him myself. Janet divorced David and left him financially drained. Despite being terminated from his job, he managed to find new employment. However, his current salary makes it challenging for him to meet his alimony and child support obligations. As for me, I've settled in Santa Maria, Ca, a serene coastal town halfway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. This location offers me convenient access to both the northern and southern parts of the state. I made the move about 4 months ago and now reside in an apartment complex filled with singles and young couples, many of whom are saving up for a home down payment. Housing prices in this area are steep, making entry into the market quite costly. I've also found companionship with a woman in the same complex. Like me, she's divorced, but we found comfort and compatibility in each other's company. We're taking things one step at a time, exploring the possibility of a future together. Given my frequent travel schedule, trust is paramount in any potential relationship, especially if we're considering starting a family. The ticking of biological clocks serves as a reminder that time waits for no one, prompting me to consider making a move sooner rather than later. The second story. I felt awful. Just off the phone with my wife of 11 years, the conversation had left her in tears. It was the day after tomorrow, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on me. 3 years back, I had nearly lost my job because Grace had been so distraught over me missing our anniversary that she demanded I come home. Now, 3 years later, it's her absence on our anniversary, and not a word I uttered could coax her back. It's perplexing why I'm the one feeling so low, but that's the reality. The past 12 years have been the epitome of happiness for me. Grace was 24 when we met, embarking on her career in sales. She had approached our architecture firm to pitch advertising in upscale magazines, beyond our budget at the time. Her allure with those dark locks captured my attention. With a little help from my partner, I managed to keep her engaged long enough to secure a date. She later confessed that she knew we couldn't afford her services, but was pleased we made it seem plausible enough for her boss to keep sending her our way until I mustered the courage to ask her out. I cracked a joke about the waiter's toupee, causing her to spurt water out of her nose. That moment, I knew I was in love. We dated for 6 months, and then she moved in with me for another 6, until she could transition from the road to an office. We tied the knot about 4 months after that. Not a single day passes without me feeling like the luckiest man alive for having her as my wife. I reached for the phone once more and dialed my boss's number. I had been there since the inception, back when Neil had founded the company. Our compact team of 4 designers had achieved remarkable breakthroughs, significantly reducing production times across various areas. "Neil, I know you're there. Pick up," I urged into the receiver. I heard him answer. "Travis, I'm swamped right now. You know that." "I'll keep it brief then. I'm leaving immediately and won't be back until Monday," I declared. "What the hell do you mean you're leaving? Where are you off to?" he inquired. "I'm taking off to spend my anniversary with my wife. Catch you on Monday," I responded. "Have a good one, you jerk. And remember to knock before barging in," he jested, laughing. "Wow, your humor is top-notch," I retorted. "You hear that all the time, don't you?" he teased. "Not from anyone who knows you. Hey, apologies, but things have been tense at home lately since they brought in that new guy to head Grace's department. Maybe a night in a hotel bed could ease the tension," I confided. "Well, it certainly can't hurt. Just promise me when you're feeling adventurous, you'll think of me," Neil quipped, chuckling. "You've got a deal. See you Monday," I affirmed. Without disconnecting the call, I dialed Neil's secretary, Batty. She had a knack for sorting things out, and I urgently needed a plane ticket. After the conversation with her, I dashed to my car and headed home to pack. As I packed my suitcase, my cell phone rang. "You've got 45 minutes to reach the airport in time for security check. Your ticket is waiting at the desk under your name." I managed to arrange a return flight for Sunday afternoon at 1:30. Unfortunately, there were no available rooms in the hotel where Grace is staying, so I booked one 2 blocks away. "Have a safe trip, and I'll see you on Monday," Batty informed me before abruptly hanging up. Rushing into the bathroom, I quickly filled my shaving kit and tossed it into my bag. After a swift check around the house and ensuring the coffee maker was switched off for once, I sprinted to my car. Over 15 years, I've learned a few shortcuts, and with a bit of speeding, a lot of speeding, I reached the airport with time to spare. After checking in, going through security, and boarding the plane, I promptly inserted my earbuds and switched on my iPod. I'm not particularly fond of flying, but music helps soothe my nerves enough to keep my hands from clutching the armrests too tightly. 3 hours later, a gentle hand on my shoulder roused me from a pleasant dream involving Grace and me. It dawned on me that I had completely passed out. Sleeping hasn't been coming easy lately. Some of it was work-related stress, but over the past couple of months, things between Grace and me have been strained. Our once vibrant sex life, which thrived just 3 months ago, had dwindled to nothing. It had been over 2 months since she even allowed me close to her. It all began with her informing me about how they had promoted a man from another department to head hers. She was frantic to prove to them that they had made a mistake in overlooking her. For the initial 2 weeks, she would return home drained, obsessing over ways to oust Mr. Marcus Brooks. She even joked about taking extreme measures. However, by the 3rd week, her agitation had subsided, and a few weeks later, she mentioned that they had started collaborating more effectively, eventually being assigned together to pursue a significant account. I began to worry that there might be something more than professional rapport between them, but Grace always reassured me, and aside from our lack of intimacy, she continued to devote as much, if not more, attention to me as before. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, my mind raced with ideas on how to surprise Grace at the restaurant without giving away my presence. Hailing a cab to my hotel, I engaged in some casual conversation with the driver about my situation. To my fortune, he recommended a charming, dimly lit establishment nestled between the 2 hotels, boasting a romantic ambience with dark dance floors and secluded booths. It sounded perfect, and I expressed my gratitude with a generous tip as I alighted at the curb. After swiftly checking in, I took a brisk shower and hurriedly left the hotel, eager to intercept Grace before she ventured out for dinner. Glancing at the lobby clock, which read just after 5:30, I decided to navigate the crowded streets on foot, estimating that I could reach her destination just as quickly. Following the directions provided by the hotel staff, I strolled leisurely, taking note of the romantic club the cabbie had recommended, conveniently located a few doors down from Grace's hotel. Arriving at the hotel lobby 10 minutes to 6, I joined the line to speak with one of the desk attendants, ready to set my plan in motion. I flashed a warm smile at the receptionist, who motioned me forward. "Hello, I'm Travis Martinez. I'd like to inquire if my wife, Grace, is in her room, and if she is, I'd appreciate a moment to speak with her, please." "Martinez, Grace. Yes, she's staying with us. Just a moment, and I'll check if she's available," she replied, dialing the room. "I'm sorry, sir, there's no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "Not at the moment. I was hoping to surprise her. Tomorrow is our anniversary, so if you wouldn't mind keeping our conversation between us, I'd greatly appreciate it," I requested, hopeful. "Certainly, sir," mum's the word. "I wish you a fantastic day tomorrow," she assured me. "Thank you. I think I'll head to the restaurant now. Maybe I'll get lucky. Good night," I said, departing. Following the aroma wafting from the far end of the lobby, I discovered a bustling room filled with people dining, chatting, and enjoying themselves. The place was teeming with patrons. I didn't rate my chances of finding Grace very high in there. Spotting the restroom tucked away to one side at the back, I figured I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. After a cursory scan of the area, I didn't spot her. Once I finished my business, I lingered at the entrance to the hallway, surveying the room again. It seemed unlikely that I would spot her amidst the crowd. Then, by some stroke of luck, I heard a familiar giggle. It was a long shot, but it sounded like Grace. Peering along the wall, I found my view obstructed by high booths, only catching glimpses of the patrons' faces and heads. I decided against approaching any tables until I could confirm who was seated there, so I retraced my steps across the restaurant, focusing my gaze once more on the wall of booths. Methodically, I began inspecting each booth along the row. It was the 3rd one from the hallway where I spotted her. Grace sat there, laughing and enjoying her meal with a man I didn't recognize. She looked stunning, dressed in the attire she always chose when anticipating a night of dancing, both vertically and horizontally. The ease between them was palpable, and my shock only deepened when Grace casually reached over, playfully snagging a morsel from his plate and popping it into her mouth, all while laughing. When the man appeared slightly miffed, she tenderly stroked his face with the back of her hand. What on earth was happening here? It seemed far more intimate than a mere dinner with a colleague. My grip on the doorframe tightened as I recoiled when he leaned in for a kiss, and Grace met his lips eagerly. Staggering away from the door, I stumbled to the center of the lobby and sank into one of the oversized wingback chairs. My trembling hand rose to my face, a wry smile forming as I observed its tremors. Thankfully, I wasn't in need of wielding a firearm, at least not tonight. I couldn't say how long I remained seated there, my gaze fixed on the dining room. The sound of that familiar giggle drew my attention, and I watched as Grace walked arm in arm with the man, leaning in close, their laughter mingling as she whispered into his ear. They passed within 15 feet of me, engrossed in conversation, but all I could do was fixate on the way Grace looked at him. It was a gaze I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. Suddenly, the air felt suffocating, and I struggled to draw a breath. I leaped out of the chair, my strides purposeful as I made my way towards the exit. Despite my usual inconspicuous stature, the crowd seemed to part effortlessly as I moved through, my expression undoubtedly reflecting my inner turmoil. Thankfully, the revolving door had buffers, preventing me from careening into the street. I reached the curb, standing there, feeling a whirlwind of emotions, pain, anger, sorrow, but it was anger that seemed to dominate. Then, a giggle. My body instinctively whirled around, my gaze fixated on them as they emerged from the door together, heading in the direction of my hotel. I watched as Grace clung to his arm, leaning into him, their steps synchronized. They turned down the block and disappeared into the very club I had glanced at earlier. Shaking myself out of the trance, I moved towards the doorway, but I slowed down, allowing them time to distance themselves. Taking a moment to collect myself, I drew in several deep breaths, attempting to quell the storm of emotions raging within me. There was no denying the significance of the look I had witnessed, but I craved something more. Clarity, perhaps. With resolve, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, pausing to let my eyes adjust to the dim lighting as I surveyed the room. Spotting them in the far booth, I skirted along the perimeter, making my way towards a small table. The waitress was quick to attend to me, hovering as I took my seat. "What can I get ya, honey?" the waitress chirped. "Scotch, rocks, double," I replied. "Our meeting isn't until 10 tomorrow, so we can stay and celebrate as late as you want," I heard him say to Grace. "I'm so glad you didn't let him guilt you into going home." A giggle. "Go home and miss our 2-month anniversary. No way." "I can't believe we've already been together for 2 months," Grace exclaimed, followed by the sound of a kiss. "It would have been longer if you had taken me up on my offer at the end of my first week there," he remarked. "Well, I had to make you think I was a little hard to get. I am supposed to be married, you know." "I couldn't believe it when you walked up to me in front of Viola and asked me out, knowing full well I was married," Grace explained. "Viola was the one who told me you thought I was hot," he revealed. "We need to get something nice for her for getting us together," Grace suggested as their waitress arrived, dropping off their drinks and then departing. "Here's to 2 fantastic months together." "And many more to come," he toasted. "And many more to come," she echoed, clinking glasses. "Here you go, honey. Will that be all?" my waitress asked, setting my drink in front of me. "Oh, yes, that's all," I replied, rising to my feet. I handed her a 10 and then watched as I dipped my finger into the glass. The icy whiskey helped lubricate my finger enough to slide off the band that had been there for so long. It had become such a hassle that I didn't bother removing it anymore. As my hand snapped away with the ring and a fair amount of skin, I glanced at the waitress. "This damn thing gets tight after 11 years, but at least I didn't have to cut off my finger," I remarked to her, picking up the drink and downing it. I slammed the glass onto the table, feeling the burn as it trickled down my throat after 10 years without a drink. "Damn, that hit the spot. Thanks, lady," I muttered before turning towards the booth. As I approached, they were just breaking a kiss. He glanced up, but being a stranger to me, my presence held little significance. Grace, however, turned to look at me. It was a moment worth capturing. The expression on her face could have adorned countless posters, her mouth moving but no words escaping. 2 months, huh? That's quite the milestone. I remember mine, but after 11 years, it loses its charm, I remarked, eyeing him as he looked at her. "Let's see, 2 months, red and gold, isn't it? Well, a couple as adorable as you deserve a gift. Here's the gold," I said, tossing my ring onto the table in Grace's direction, "and here's the red," I added, swinging my fist into his face. "Marcus," Grace half yelled, reaching out to cradle his face in her hands. I felt a satisfying crunch as my fist connected with his nose, but I knew I needed to leave before things escalated further. Turning to face Grace as she tended to the jerk, I spoke sternly. "At some point, Tell him he's lucky this didn't happen in my house. Leave a message about where you want your things sent. And if you're wise, which I'm not convinced you are, you won't show up at my doorstep. You might want to ice that nose. I think it's broken, I advised before turning and walking away. I exited the club and set a brisk pace towards my hotel, each stride serving to put more distance between Grace and me. Despite knowing she likely had no idea where I was staying and might not even attempt to track me down after my altercation, I felt an urgent need to create space between us. It had been 2 decades since I last resorted to violence, back when I was 23. One would think I'd have learned something since then. Well, perhaps I had learned one thing: never take anything for granted. It was a lesson I wished I hadn't learned the hard way. Entering the hotel lobby, I made a beeline for the front desk. "Excuse me, do you have the phone numbers for the airlines? I need to book a flight as soon as possible," I requested. "Certainly, sir. Which airline and when and where would you like to go?" the receptionist inquired. I provided her with all the necessary details, and she assured me she would call the room once she had the flight information. I retreated to my room, consumed by disbelief. How had this situation even unfolded? Then it struck me. Grace had missed her calling. The performance she'd been putting on for the past 2 months would have earned her an award. Her acting skills were astounding. Recalling her tearful display on the phone when I tried to guilt her into coming home only fueled my growing anger. I couldn't bear to remain in the room any longer. Grabbing my bag, I descended the stairs to the lobby. As I reached the bottom, the receptionist put down the phone and gestured for me to approach. "Sir, if you leave now, you have an outside chance of catching the last flight tonight. Final check-in is in 30 minutes. If you don't make it, the next flight is in 3 hours," the receptionist informed me. "Thank you. I hope the cab drivers around here are reliable," I replied as I hastily signed a checkout slip she had pushed in front of me. "I'm sorry you had to cut your visit short. Please keep us in mind the next time you're in town," she said with a polite smile. "I have a feeling I won't be forgetting anything about this visit anytime soon," I muttered, making my way towards the door. I dashed out of the lobby and found a cab waiting at the stand just up the street. "I've got $50 that says you can't get me to the airport in less than 30 minutes. I challenged the driver as I jumped into the back seat. "You're on, boss," he replied, snapping me back against the seat. The driver was skilled. He managed to get me to the airport in 20 minutes. I paid him what was on the meter plus the $50 bet, thanked him, and hurried towards my gate. Despite having a few minutes to spare, my nerves were on edge. I anxiously paced around, hoping no one would mistake my restlessness for something suspicious. My mind raced, and I found myself muttering under my breath as I waited for the flight to board. Finally, they called us to board, and I was fortunate enough to have a seat to myself. Unlike before, I didn't feel the need for music this time. There was plenty on my mind to keep me occupied. A sudden thought crossed my mind, and I almost burst out laughing. Grace's mom, Joyce, hadn't exactly been my biggest fan. She had her husband, Henry, wrapped around her finger, treating him like a mushroom, keeping him in the dark and feeding him nonsense. But I never let her get away with it, and she wasn't too pleased about that. I remembered her once telling Grace that I would cheat on her one day, claiming she had caught me checking out other women when we were all together. Throughout the flight, I sat there pondering if this was all really happening. I pulled out the picture I always carried of Grace and me and stared at it. Suddenly, the smiling face beside me seemed to transform into the image of that jerk. I quickly glanced around to ensure no one had seen my reaction before looking back at the photo. It was still me next to Grace, but all I could see was her gazing into his eyes that way. Now she had me questioning everything. Despite the stereotype that men aren't supposed to be the ones who remember things, I considered myself an exception to that rule. From the beginning, Grace had tried to pull the "do you remember this?" or "do you remember that?" card, but I always did. I remembered every conversation, every plan, every little secret shared in the dark. Now I sat there wondering, if I hadn't noticed this going on for 2 months, what else had I missed? The guy had asked her out the first week he met her, and from what she said, the only reason it hadn't happened then was because she wanted to make it look good since she was married. The image of Grace sitting at the table with him tore at my insides. Watching their familiarity, the shared glances, the gentle touches, that simple little kiss, was like a dagger to the heart. Damn it. Even after I rid myself of all her belongings, I knew I'd be haunted by that sight for a long time. The thought of parting with her things sparked a twofold idea. I decided I'd go home, pack it all up, and deliver it to her mother's place. Sure, the old bag would find a way to blame me, but as long as I knew the truth, that's all that mattered. The ding of the seatbelt sign signaled our arrival at the airport, jolting me out of my thoughts. It triggered a bit of white knuckling, but all things considered, I handled the flight better than I ever had before. After we docked at the gate, I waited for the rush of passengers in a hurry to clear out. The last thing I needed was to be pushed too far and lash out. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, I joined the procession into the terminal. Exiting the airport, I made my way straight to my car and queued up in line for the exit. I don't recall much of the drive home, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I got there. Stepping into the darkened house felt surreal. All I could think was, get used to it, pal. This is how it's going to look from now on. Dropping my bag, I headed for the kitchen. On my way, I instinctively flicked on the switch for the answering machine. Travis, please don't do anything irrational. I'm on my way home so we can talk. Please just hold off until I get there, her voice pleaded, tinged with distress. I didn't consider smashing the answering machine as crazy. In fact, I saw it as fitting punishment for delivering a message I didn't want to hear in a voice I didn't want to hear it from. So, I destroyed it. Perhaps it was a tad irrational, but at least it's cheaper than repairing walls. Don't do anything crazy, she said. I wondered what she meant by that. Well, crazy or not, tired or not, there would be no sleep for me tonight. I ventured into the garage and gathered all the luggage she had accumulated over the years. Selecting a large matching black case and a garment bag, I set them aside and carried the rest up to the bedroom. Sorting through her closet, I grabbed armfuls of clothes and stuffed them into the bags. There were items in those drawers I hadn't seen in years, yet she had always accused me of being a pack rat. But who knows, maybe she had been wearing them for someone else. After clearing out the dresser, I retrieved a couple of boxes for her shoes. Moving everything to the front room near the door, I paused for a moment with a bottle of water, contemplating my next move. The idea of having a small cookout with hot dogs and marshmallows briefly crossed my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. Dealing with the local law enforcement and her would be more trouble than it was worth. Instead, I decided to head to the hardware store on a whim. I purchased new locks and hurried home to install them. Upon returning, I realized the pile in the front room couldn't stay there. Following the same line of thinking as before, I loaded everything into my car and drove towards her mom's house. I maneuvered my car into their driveway, stepped out, and began unloading everything next to the garage. I didn't want to burden Henry too much, especially knowing he wouldn't be receiving any help from his wife or daughter. As the third case thudded onto the ground, my dear mother-in-law emerged. "Hello, Travis. What's all this?" she inquired, her curiosity evident. "Well, I figured when Grace arrives, she might need some clothes. I was going to let her bring them herself, but I couldn't bear to see them cluttering up the front room any longer," I explained. "When is Grace getting here? I thought she was still out of town. And why would she need her clothes here?" Joyce probed further, her tone tinged with concern. "Well, Joyce, I'm not certain where she plans on residing, but I assume she might stay with you until she figures things out. For all I know, she may have already arranged to move in with the gentleman she's been seeing. But of course, I can't say for certain, which is precisely why I brought her things here," I stated, observing her expression paling. "What in the world are you insinuating? How can you accuse my daughter of such a thing? She had to stay there for work purposes. I assure you, she's not cheating on you," Joyce retorted, her agitation bordering on hysteria. "Well, the last time I caught sight of the happy couple, they were enjoying their 2-month anniversary at a nightclub close to their hotel. You see, after practically pleading with her to return home for our anniversary, and her tearfully expressing regret that she couldn't make it, I decided to hop on a plane. Upon my arrival, I found them already dining together. It seemed quite romantic, so I opted not to interrupt their meal. Plus, witnessing them sharing a kiss over the table made me feel like I needed a moment to compose myself. Later, as they strolled past me in the lobby, I contemplated addressing them, but her tender gaze and whispered words to him dissuaded me from intruding on their moment. Feeling suffocated, I stepped outside to catch my breath, just in time to witness them heading towards a nearby nightclub. While seated at a table nearby, I overheard her expressing reluctance to leave him on their 2-month anniversary, only to be corrected by him, stating it should be their 3rd month, and that she shouldn't have played hard to get when he asked her out after the first week they met. It dawned on me that if I wanted to secure a flight out of there, I would have to interject in their celebration. I tried to be discreet, but I felt compelled to offer them a little gift. So I took my first drink in 10 years, ever since you warned Grace that my drinking would lead to the demise of our marriage, and presented her with my wedding ring, and him with a broken nose. I thought it was rather considerate of me to give each of them something, although I must admit, I quite preferred his gift. Now, after she returns home, delivers yet another Oscar-worthy performance, and I show her the door, I'm sure she'll be making a prolonged visit here, I concluded, leaving her speechless. None of this is true. How could you say such things about your wife of 11 years? She said, sounding utterly shocked. Don't ever call that woman my wife again. Maybe you feel obligated to stand by her because she's your daughter, but I don't. I witnessed it all with my own eyes. For the past 2 months, I've been living in a sexless, solitary existence, while she's been out gallivanting with this jerk from the moment he joined that company. That's quite the daughter you've raised. She has looked me in the eye for 3 months straight and, seemingly without an ounce of guilt, lied to me every single day. If you think I'm welcoming her back into my home, you're even more deluded than she is. Regardless, what you choose to believe is your problem. As for me, I'm cutting my losses. She seems quite infatuated with that guy. Well, he can have her. She won't have to worry about sneaking around to keep it a secret anymore. After she's finished attempting to lie her way out of this mess, I'll be sending her over here. You can see for yourself who's telling the truth, I declared, dropping the last box on the ground. Now I need to head back home. She didn't specify when she'll be arriving, and I've already changed the locks. Wouldn't want her to be inconvenienced by standing outside, would we? I'm going straight in to call her and inform her of what you've done. Once she's through with you, you'll regret the day you were born, she retorted angrily, stomping into the house. It's a little too late for that. If she answers, tell her whatever you want, including that I'll be eagerly awaiting to hear how she intends to talk her way out of this, I replied, getting into my car. I anticipated a call after Joyce's threat to reach out to Grace, but it never came. After aimlessly wandering around the house for a couple of hours, I ventured out to the little corner of our garage that I had converted into a workspace. I puttered around, accomplishing nothing until I heard the doorbell ring. After hastily dusting off my clothes, I made my way to the door. Upon opening it, I stepped back without uttering a word, allowing Grace to enter. You must have been in the garage. I tried knocking, she remarked as I closed the door and trailed after her. Yeah, I was tidying up a few things, I replied. From the sounds of it, you've been doing a lot of tidying. My mother called me a while ago. It seems like you've pretty much made up your mind about what to do with me, she said. You didn't leave me with many options. Did you really think I'd be okay with you having a boyfriend? I questioned. I suppose I wasn't doing a lot of thinking. Not with my head, anyway, she admitted. Too bad, because that's all I've been doing. You see, I haven't had anyone around to distract me from things. You know, someone to go to dinner with, hit up a club, or simply sit in the dark, whispering and kissing. Instead, what I've got is a woman who can look me straight in the eye and lie to me. She can share my home, my meals, and my life, only to turn around and be intimately involved with someone else. So yes, I think I've pretty much made up my mind, I stated. Doesn't paint a very flattering picture, does it? Are you really going to throw away 11 years together? She queried. I don't recall being asked, and I didn't give up anything. You had me believing everything was fine and dandy. Did I miss something? Did you ever ask me, Travis, do you mind if I start a relationship with someone else? You'd think I'd remember something like that. But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Now you and what's-his-name can go about your business without worrying about me. No more hassles like figuring out which anniversary to spend with whom. Hey, you two can even carpool to work. That will save you guys loads of time, I said, walking over to a chair. You don't have to add all the sarcasm. I think I understand your point, Grace said. Do you really, Grace? Because I don't think you do. To you, it was just cheating. Heck, you probably found a way to justify it. Maybe you even thought it was my fault. Was it, Grace? Is it my fault you slept with that guy? I asked. No, I didn't blame you for it. It just happened, she admitted, dropping her head. Bullshit. Sleeping with someone for 3 months, other than your husband of 11 years, isn't something that just happens. It's something you work on. Then you work to hide it so you can keep doing it. And let me tell you, baby, you're damn good at your job. I fell for it all, hook, line, and sinker. I don't know how you two found the time to have sex. You must have been laughing your asses off at what a fool you made out of me. And that crying scene on the phone the other night. Holy shit, you really need to consider a career change. That performance would have beaten out the last 3 Academy Award winners, hands down, I said. We never once laughed at you. One time he tried to put you down, and I wouldn't speak to him for a week. And the crying wasn't a performance. I was filled with guilt, crying genuinely. There you were, practically begging me to come home, but I had already made a promise to stay, and I figured that after 11 years, you wouldn't really mind me missing this one, she said, looking away again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sticking up for me. And you didn't sleep with him for a whole week. Wow. And I guess I wasn't even supposed to think about the little stunt you pulled 3 years ago when I was doing something important, and you went into such hysterics that I almost lost my job to come home to you. I am sorry for making you feel guilty, though, but I noticed you were over it by the time I saw the two of you at dinner. The little intimacies the two of you were showing one another made it pretty clear that you were where you wanted to be with the one you wanted to be with. I saw you walking across the lobby. I saw the way you were looking at him. Don't stand there and try telling me it doesn't mean anything to you. I saw you look at him, Grace. Sorry to say, it's been a long time since I've seen that look, I said. But I don't love him, she said, looking up at me. Well, now that you can spend more time with him, maybe that will change. Maybe the two of you can get a place together. Think of the fun we had when we were first starting out. It'll be a whole new adventure for you, I said. I guess I should have put that differently. What I meant to say was that I love you, she said. I was pretty proud of myself. Just the one short, little uncontrollable outburst of laughter, and I stopped. I'm not really sure where that came from, but you sure as hell do not love me. If this is what you do to people you love, please God, don't let me get on your bad side. How can you sit there and think that after 11 years I don't love you, she said. Okay, Grace, I see you're into questions too, so here's one for you. Knowing yourself as well as you do, you know how you would react to certain situations. Taking it from there, how do you think you would have reacted if you had found out I had slept with another woman just once? Nothing long-term, just the one time. I asked. I probably would have thrown you out of the house and already had the divorce papers drawn up, she whispered. Thanks for being honest. That's pretty much what I thought you would have done too. I kind of threw in you tossing something at me, but who knows, I said. I probably would have, she said with a weak smile. Okay, now suppose that you found out that every day, for as near as I can figure, 3 months, every bit of time I spent with you, and it was damn little, meant nothing to me. All I did was go through the motions and make you think that everything between us was great, and then go to work, meet up with my lover, and spend the entire day with her. So does this give you the impression that I love you? After close to 13 years, give me some credit, Grace. Besides, like I said, now you two should be able to get closer. You know, without all the sneaking around, I said matter-of-factly. You are making it sound like you don't even care. The time I spent with you meant a lot to me. I was not just going through motions. I enjoyed being with you, she said. When was the last time we had fun in bed, Grace? When was the last time you came up and started one of our 5-minute kisses? You could answer a question without having to think about who you were talking to. When was the last time you were my wife, Grace? Don't stand there declaring your love for me after what I saw and heard. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. Jesus, you were talking about him to that old bag Viola the second he walked into the office. Then you two sit there and talk about getting the old bag a gift for getting you together. It sounds to me like you just found your next matron of honor. All you need is his best friend, and you guys are set, I said, leaning back in the chair. So you are just like me after all. Should I be expecting the server at my door? She asked. First, you'll have to tell me where you are planning to be, but then no way, not a chance. You will not see some process person at your door handing you your divorce papers. I reserve that right for myself. I was there when we started. I'll be the one seeing that the last I is dotted and the last T is crossed. You know me, if I didn't do it, it isn't right. I trusted one person completely, Grace, and now you know, after all these years, why I never trusted the important things to anyone but me. Somehow, the I told you so thing doesn't work so well when you have to say it to yourself, I said. It sounds like you spent a lot of time watching and listening to us. Why did you wait so long to break in on us? Were you getting off watching? She asked, her voice tinged with venom. When I saw the two of you kiss over that table in the restaurant, it kind of took the wind out of me. Then, when the two of you were strolling across the lobby, I was too shocked at the way you were looking at him. When I got my bearings, I kind of went into overload and needed some air badly. As I was standing out in front of the hotel, the two of you pushed your way out of the door together and started for a club my cabbie had recommended when I told him I was here for my anniversary, aiming for something quiet and intimate. I got there a little after the two of you, but there you have me. I'm not really sure what more I thought I needed. I had intended to just walk up and beat the shit out of the guy. Instead, I found a table next to yours and ordered a drink. I listened to you two for as long as I could, and when you toasted him to a long and happy life together, I had had all I could stomach. I had to almost pull my finger off to get that damn ring off, but that drink burned my guts so bad I didn't really notice. Sometime you'll have to tell, what's his name, how close he came. When that asshole looked up at me like he was wondering what my problem was, I came that close to grabbing that windpipe and giving a quick twist. After a second of thought, though, I knew you weren't worth the risk of spending the rest of my life in jail. You had made your choice when we talked earlier on the phone, and I decided that was fine by me. I have to admit I was pretty satisfied when I felt his nose crunch, but with your two combined incomes, he should be able to fix any permanent damage, I said. So that's it. Case closed, get rid of Grace, and move on. You show up, see me with another man, don't break us up, but step in and break his nose when you don't want to watch anymore. What is that supposed to show me? She asked, her hands on her hips. I guess I didn't know I needed to show you anything. What I did for me, not you. Why would I fight for someone like you? Someone that respected me so little that she thought treating me like that was something that I'd tolerate or excuse. When I gave you that ring, I thought I was making myself pretty clear. I'm done with you. I'm not putting any more energy into something that now means so little to both of us. There's no way I'm going to forget and forgive, and I can tell from the way you acted before, and now that I haven't been very high on your list of important people. So yeah, it's get rid of Grace and move on. I don't presume to know how you thought this was going to end, but you messed up the bed. Now you sleep in it, I said, looking her square in the eye. So that's it. You just throw me out and keep everything. Somehow that seems like a poor deal after 11 years, she said. It's always about a deal, isn't it? Okay, here's the deal. You want the house. You pay for the house. Me, I want the house. I like it here. With all the extra room, I can finally make it into something I want. I just assumed you and Asphalt had a place lined up, I said. His name is Marcus, she said. I don't care what his name is. Does he or does he not have a place to live? I said, frustration evident in my tone. Well, of course he does, she replied. Well, there you go, problem solved, I retorted. I waited for her to say something, and then it dawned on me. So, you don't think his wife will go for the arrangement, I guess, I said, observing her reaction. What, did you check up on him? How did you know he was married? She asked, sounding surprised. Jesus, this isn't a joke. You really think I'm that dumb? Why else would you be here, Grace? So which is it? Is he not willing to get a divorce for you, or are you getting cold feet? I hope you weren't really thinking of trying to come back here with me, I said, my patience wearing thin. I had given it some thought. I thought maybe after 11 years. I cut her off. Think again. There is no us. That was your call. Here's to the best 2 months ever, and many more to come. Do you recall that line? It's like I told you earlier when I gave you that ring. That was it. Don't give me this after 11 years crap. Those 11 years meant nothing to you before, and they mean nothing to me now. So I'll take those 11 years and raise you a set of papers as soon as I can have them drawn up. The offer on the house stands as it is. If you don't want the house, feel free to come back and take what you want. Most of it will be going to the Salvation Army as soon as I can get replacements on the way anyway, I said firmly. So you'll just move on without a second thought. Divorce me and forget about me. Is that all there is to it? She asked, her voice laced with hurt. You're not really trying to make me feel sorry for you, are you? Of course, I'm not ever going to forget about someone I spent so much of my life with, but as far as remembering goes, it's going to take a long time to get the sight of the two of you together out of my mind. The thought of you sleeping in my bed after being with that piece of shit makes my stomach turn. Waking up and getting that cheery greeting and a little sunshine blown up my ass day after day. There is nothing left for you here. I won't have someone I can't trust living under the same roof with me, and I will never trust you again. So what will it be? Do you want the house? I asked, my tone firm. No, I don't want the house. Give me a few days to find a place, and I'll probably take a lot of the furniture, she said, pulling her hand out of her pocket. What do you want me to do with this? She said, holding my ring out to me. Whatever you want. Hey, I know, use it for one of those toe rings. It should fit over your big toe. That's the way you were treating it anyway. You might as well get some use out of it, I said, a hint of bitterness in my voice. Fine, you know what? I could use a little extra cash. Maybe I'll pawn it, she said. Wow, you won't get much. They buy that stuff by weight, and you probably won't get $30. You couldn't buy a real solid gold toe ring for $30, but hey, that's just my opinion. It's your ring, do what you want with it, I said, a touch of sarcasm in my tone. I'll call you in a few days about the furniture. Did you get all of my things out of the closet? She asked, turning for the door. Well, I got everything, but I was a little pissed at the time and did a pretty poor job of packing. I hope you have a few clean, unwrinkled things left from your trip, I said, trying to keep my tone casual. Mind if I take a look? She asked. Not at all, you know the way, I said, watching her give me a little scowl. I sat there and waited. I heard her go into the bedroom, then the closet, and finally the bathroom. After a few minutes, she came down, stuffing a few cosmetics into a flowered zip-up bag. You were pretty thorough, only missed a few things. Might have to give you a call when I'm ready to move, she said with a fake smile. Hey, as long as it's no closer to me, I'll be glad to lend a hand, I said, sporting the same smile and getting up to open the door for her. So, you want me to just walk away? You don't have anything left to say, she said. I stood there thinking for a second, and I actually did think of something. Would it be too much for me to ask you to run? I said, keeping a straight face. Kiss my ass, you asshole, she said as she turned and walked out the door. I wouldn't kiss that thing. I don't even know where it's been, I said, shutting the door. The third story. The most agonizing moment came as I watched her prepare for her date. Each stroke of makeup, every twist of her hair, seemed a betrayal as she adorned herself in an unfamiliar dress, paired with high heels I'd never seen her wear before. This transformation wasn't for me, her husband, but for Carl Phillips, her boss. It stirred a potent mix of betrayal, jealousy, and anger within me. While I toiled tirelessly to provide for our family, she was making herself alluring to another man outside of our marriage. It was all so bewildering. Our marriage had been nothing short of wonderful. Amanda had always been attentive and loving, never giving me cause to doubt her fidelity. 20 years together had built a foundation of trust, and I never imagined she would stray. Yet, a month ago at her company dinner, Carl Phillips, the managing partner at her law firm, had paid her undue attention. It was the smirk he shot me after a dance with my wife that set off alarm bells. When I confronted Amanda, her defense of him only fueled my suspicions. Suddenly, the late meetings and missed lunches took on a new significance, prompting me to investigate further. The more I dwelled on the situation, the more my anger intensified. Amanda worked as Carl's personal assistant, serving under him at a prestigious law firm where he held the role of managing partner. Carl embodied the archetype of success, flaunting his wealth through luxurious cars, extravagant jewelry, and a young trophy wife named Wendy, whom he pursued after divorcing his wife of 2 decades. His penchant for jesting at others' expense was apparent. I vividly recalled an instance during a social gathering where he belittled my occupation. While my job entailed selling screws and fasteners to major retail chains, far from glamorous, it provided a comfortable living, earning me upwards of $200,000 annually. This income facilitated a fulfilling life for my family, affording our daughter Janet's college tuition and sustaining our pleasant lifestyle in a tight-knit community surrounded by good friends. Although I didn't boast Carl's status or rake in 7 figures, our happiness seemed secure, at least that's what I believed. Yet the night he derided my profession in front of my wife and others, my frustration surged. It wasn't merely his arrogance that irked me, but the way Amanda defended him, even after witnessing my humiliation. "Hey John, how's the nut and bolt business? I bet you get screwed a lot. Aha. It must be fun having to work at Home Depot every day," Carl quipped, accompanied by laughter from Amanda. My blood boiled at the mockery, and without a word, I turned and walked away. Amanda, to her credit, approached me, inquiring about my abrupt departure. When I shared my grievance, she attempted to downplay the situation. "Oh, baby, he's just teasing. Carl likes to joke around. Don't take it so personally. Come back with me, he's actually a nice guy," she urged, coaxing me to return to the dinner. Against my instincts, I remained for the remainder of the evening, suppressing my unease. Reflecting on that moment now, I realize I may have overlooked warning signs. Despite my confidence and refusal to be anyone's fool, I failed to heed my gut feeling. I understood the allure Carl held for others, the epitome of an alpha male, strong, handsome, and affluent, the partner everyone gravitated towards. Amanda, as his trusted confidant and right-hand person, only added to his allure. It mattered little that he had a younger, attractive wife. To a man like Carl, acquiring everything, including another man's wife, was simply another conquest. Over the ensuing week, I took swift action to confirm whether my suspicions were warranted. With the arrival of 6 audio recording devices and 5 video cameras, I initiated my plan. I discreetly installed the first camera within the bedroom smoke detector, positioning the others strategically throughout the house, each equipped with advanced features, including live feed capability, 8K recording, and wireless connectivity to a dedicated computer stashed in the attic, all remotely accessible via a smartphone app. In addition to the video surveillance, the audio devices added another layer of surveillance. One was cleverly concealed within a pen, discreetly placed next to the kitchen phone, while another found its inconspicuous spot within her car. The remaining standard recording devices were nestled within her 3 favorite purses and discreetly positioned behind our bed. With this comprehensive setup, I anticipated capturing at least 90% of her conversations and any activities within her home. Despite my unease about the upcoming week, when I would be away on my sales calls, I proceeded with my plans. True to form, Amanda showered me with affection and intimacy, just as she always did before my overnight trips. Her gestures, laden with kisses and sweet words professing her love, reassured me of our bond. Her unwavering intimacy was a cherished aspect of our relationship, never failing to uplift me. On the eve of my departure, we shared a remarkable night together, deepening our connection. In the midst of such love and closeness, doubts about her fidelity momentarily wavered, almost prompting me to abandon my surveillance plan. However, I resisted the impulse and proceeded with my original intentions, embarking on my 2-night trip as scheduled. With a farewell kiss, I set off on the road by 6 p.m., bracing myself for the 3-hour drive to the hotel. During the drive to the hotel, I found myself mulling over the events of the past 6 months, searching for any subtle deviations. Apart from the unsettling encounters with her boss, those two scenes etched in my memory, marked by his smirk and attempts at belittling me. Nothing else stood out. A wry smile crept onto my face as I realized the folly of my paranoia. Upon reaching the hotel, I swiftly checked into my room and settled onto the plush king-size bed. With my laptop in hand, I eased into a state of relaxation. After skimming through work emails, I accessed the server in my attic remotely, eager to review the footage from the past 3 hours. While I anticipated finding nothing of significance, I needed to validate the functionality of the remote access system. Hastening the video playback to 3 times its normal speed, I skimmed through until my wife's figure appeared in the bedroom. Dialing the speed back to normal, I indulged in watching my stunning, alluring wife engaged in a phone call. What caught me off guard, however, was the unexpected phone conversation she had an hour after my departure with Carl. As the video streamed her side of the conversation, I listened intently, unable to shake off the unease settling within me. Her side of the conversation with Carl. "Hello, my love, he's left, and I find myself alone once more. Yes, for 2 nights this time. When can you join me? But won't your spouse wonder where you're off to? Oh, that's fantastic. Could you stay the night with me? I ache to wake up by your side. Absolutely, without a doubt. What time will you arrive then? All right, see you soon. I adore you, darling." I sat there, stunned. We had just shared an intense night together, and she professed her love for me repeatedly. Yet now, barely an hour later, she's inviting him over to stay the night. Who was this woman? How could she express such deep affection for me and then betray me moments later? Was he really coming over tonight? Part 2. Now let's go back to the beginning of the story. For the next hour, I observed through my equipment as my once loving wife readied herself to rendezvous with her lover. Witnessing her shower, don lingerie, slip into heels, meticulously apply makeup, and fuss over her hair for a half hour was a tormenting spectacle. While I had always acknowledged her attractiveness, the painful truth lay in the fact that she never adorned herself in such a manner for me. Anger and envy surged within me as I comprehended that she was meticulously preparing for Carl, not her devoted husband. The reality of it all remained difficult to grasp. Was Carl truly on his way tonight, or was this all a misunderstanding? That lingering question was swiftly answered a few minutes later when the doorbell chimed, revealing Carl's arrival as captured by the video camera in real time. Witnessing Carl's brazen entrance into my home and his unabashed kiss with Amanda before the lens was enough to induce my first bout of nausea that evening. "You look stunning in that dress, babe. I can hardly wait to have it off and spend the night with you," he remarked, his wide grin fixed on Amanda. Their exchange kindled fury within me, but that anger soon morphed into profound anguish as I observed Amanda take his hand and lead him upstairs to her bedroom. The agony intensified as I bore witness to actions she had never bestowed upon me, suffused with jealousy, rage, and indignation. After a second round of retching into the trash can, I endured the next hour by watching and listening to their interaction. Though I knew my marriage was irreparably shattered, and I should have detached myself, their conversation proved to be the most excruciating aspect of that harrowing night. As they lay intertwined, Ashol initiated the conversation. "So, the little cuck is away for a few nights. Good, you'll be mine for the next 2 days. I'm thrilled you can stay the night, baby. I've been yearning to wake up next to you for so long. I adore being with you, Carl. Yes, I'll relish taking you over and over again all night while hubby sweats away. What fool. Be kind, Carl. I love him, and he's a good man. Then why are you letting me share your bed? Carl, you're the most amazing man I know, and I appreciate everything you do for me. But we're both married, and we should just cherish the time we have together. That makes sense. I adore everything about you too. You give me more love and affection than my wife or any other woman I've known. I just adore the way you make me feel, Amanda. It stung deeply because that love he spoke of was meant to be solely mine. Now I realized she was sharing her love with another man. I continued to listen and watch as they embraced, kissed, and conversed. Does your cuckold husband satisfy you as much as I do, Amanda? He's a wonderful lover, but no, he's not like you. You do things to me that I can't explain. I sat there, engulfed in sadness and hurt, a profound sense of loss weighing heavily upon me. With a heavy heart, I closed the computer, unable to bear any more of the betrayal unfolding within the confines of my own home and bed. Despite hours passing without sleep and wrestling with my seething anger, I knew that a tumultuous journey of pain and retribution lay ahead. Upon my return home, everything appeared normal. There was an air of total love and respect, as if nothing had transpired. Amanda greeted me warmly with a tight hug and an abundance of kisses. She behaved as though nothing had occurred during my absence. However, instead of the love I had always felt for her, I now recoiled at her touch, repulsed by her affection. Summoning every ounce of acting skill, I portrayed a facade of normalcy to the best of my ability. Gathering all recordings and videos, I meticulously secured copies on the cloud for backup and created an encrypted file on my PC. Over the ensuing 2 weeks, I ensured that every moment of Amanda's time was spent with me, leaving no opportunity for clandestine meetings or clandestine rendezvous. I kept her occupied, preventing any chance of a quick liaison or late-night encounter. Her inquiry about my next trip only heightened my suspicion, confirming their eagerness for my departure. One morning, as she drove to work, I clandestinely listened to their conversation, further confirming my suspicions. When's your wimpy husband going out of town again? Not sure, but I'll find out. It should be soon, baby. Armed with that knowledge, I devised a one-night trip to ensure he'd come over while I was away. The plan began to take shape. That very night, while we were engrossed in watching a movie on TV, my unfaithful wife casually inquired, "Honey, when's your next trip?" Suppressing my anger, I replied with a jesting tone, "Sweetheart, are you trying to get rid of me? Do you have a secret lover who visits when I'm away?" Unfazed and showing no hint of guilt, she responded, "Don't be silly. I love having you at home. I was just hoping your traveling had slowed down." "No, sorry, sweetheart. The job still demands travel. Yes, next Tuesday, I have an overnight trip scheduled, and I'll be back sometime on Wednesday." In a convincing tone, she lamented, "I hate when you leave. I wish you didn't have to travel like that. I miss you so much when you're gone." Then she embraced me, kissed me passionately, showering me with affection that made my heart ache. The realization that she bestowed this same love upon another man stirred a primal rage within me, but I maintained my facade, continuing as if nothing was amiss, knowing that the following week would set my plan into motion. On Tuesday, I packed for my trip and Amanda, and I shared what would be our final lovemaking session. After tonight, there would be no us anymore. As I prepared to depart that evening, she bestowed upon me a tender kiss, and I couldn't help but wonder if she noticed the sorrow in my eyes as I gazed at her for the last time. Her expression shifted, leaving me uncertain of what was going through her mind. Part 3. Showtime. Rather than embarking on an out-of-town journey, I drove back to my office and parked my car. Returning to my desk to work late was not out of the ordinary, and the few colleagues present didn't question my reappearance. Around 7:30, the video camera sprang to life as Carl entered my home, exchanging yet another affectionate kiss with my soon-to-be ex-wife. It was showtime. Using my phone app, I deactivated the video camera and stowed my cell phone in my desk drawer, avoiding any potential tracking via GPS during my supposed trip. Stealthily exiting the office, I retrieved the folding electric bike from my car trunk. With its silent electric motor capable of speeds up to 30 miles per hour and a range of 50 miles, I donned a black hoodie and cautiously embarked on the 12-mile ride back to my house. The purpose of the bike was stealth. Its discreet nature allowed me to return home within 20 minutes, undetected. Parking the bike discreetly at the rear of the house, I entered through the right rear sliding door. Ensuring my presence went unnoticed, I listened intently to the noises emanating from the bedroom. Once satisfied they were engaged and oblivious to my return, I retrieved the short-barreled shotgun and aluminum bat I had strategically positioned in the closet, proceeding silently toward the bedroom. With careful precision, I positioned the shotgun against the wall just outside the bedroom, gripping the bat tightly as I silently turned the doorknob to the softly illuminated room. Amidst their clamorous lovemaking, they remained oblivious to my presence as I approached the bed with measured steps. He lay atop my wife in that moment, lost in their passion. Without hesitation, I delivered a forceful blow to the side of his head. The dull thud of metal meeting flesh was the only sound, momentarily overpowering the cacophony of their activities as the 250-pound figure crumpled to the floor. In the midst of his descent, I seized the shotgun and flicked on the lights, jolting Amanda into awareness. Staring at me with a mixture of astonishment and horror, she cried out, "Oh God, no. Please, no. This can't be happening. Why are you here? You're supposed to be away." "Well, you vile scum. Perhaps the better question is, why are you sharing our bed with another man? Now, be silent and listen." The intruder, now semi-conscious, sat slumped against the wall, blood oozing from a 6-inch gash inflicted by the unforgiving metal bat. I observed him as he gradually regained awareness, his gaze meeting mine, filled with rage and disbelief. "Damn, that hurt. Why'd you do that, man?" he groaned, rubbing his injured head. "Are you kidding me? You sleep with my wife in our bed, and you think I won't react?" I retorted, my voice laced with anger. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his nervousness palpable as he eyed the gun I held aimed at him. "Are you worried, big guy? Afraid this scumbag is going to hurt you? I know you two have been having an affair behind my back, and tonight I'm going to get my revenge. I'm going to kill you, Carl. You're going to die today," I spat out, contempt dripping from every word. "Everything you've worked for will be gone. I hope it was worth it, asshole." "Dude, if you kill me, you'll go to jail for the rest of your life," he protested, desperation evident in his voice. "Screw it. We're all going to die today. How about that, asshole?" I taunted, relishing their fear. Though I had no intention of killing anyone, I enjoyed watching them squirm. I continued to play the part, escalating the tension. Amanda, curled up in a ball, was sobbing uncontrollably. "Baby, please don't do anything stupid. I love you, I really do. Put the gun down and let's discuss this," she pleaded, her voice trembling with fear. Grinning maliciously, I turned the gun toward her and sneered, "Shut up, cheater. This is all happening because you couldn't keep it in your pants. Whatever happens tonight is on your conscience. Look at your wussy lover. He just pissed himself. Looks like you're just a little boy. Not really a man, are you, asshole? You have to wear diapers," I ranted, letting them know I was unhinged and unpredictable. It was a ploy to keep them on edge, to make them realize they needed to calm me down if they wanted to survive. The custom shells loaded in the shotgun contained a mixture of 25% salt and 75% oleoresin capsicum, commonly used in pepper spray. My intention wasn't to end a life, but to inflict excruciating pain upon the despicable man. I had no desire to end up behind bars for murder. Instead, I aimed to instill a lasting fear and unforgettable memory in both of them. After Big Carl regained his composure from the blow to his head, he foolishly decided to lunge toward me in an attempt to disarm me, playing right into my hands. Seizing the opportunity, I took a calculated step back and fired the first round between his legs. The explosion reverberated loudly, but his screams overshadowed any other sound. A thick cloud of capsicum enveloped him, rendering him unable to see or breathe without gasping for air, while the searing pain engulfed him like never before. I was taken aback by the devastation the blast inflicted on his reproductive organ. Even a non-lethal projectile fired at such close range tore through flesh and peppered the surrounding skin, causing unimaginable agony. As he writhed in pain and bled profusely, I laid out the plan. Giving him a firm kick to grab his attention, I directed my words towards both him and my soon-to-be ex-wife. "Listen up, you scumbag, and you too, my unfaithful wife. I'll be leaving shortly, and you two will take this sorry excuse of a man to the emergency room before he bleeds out. You won't call 911. Instead, you'll drive him to the hospital in your car. You will keep this incident between us, and you'll claim I had no knowledge of your affair. If either of you implicates me or mentions my awareness of your adultery, the videos, audio recordings, and photos I've amassed will be shared with Ashl's wife and your partners at the firm. Additionally, a link to a website containing over 2 hours of incriminating footage will be distributed to everyone in your circles. You can fabricate whatever story you like for the police, but my name must not be mentioned, and you must maintain that I was entirely unaware of the situation. Asshole, you will not terminate my future ex-wife's employment. She will need the job after our divorce is finalized. If you attempt to retaliate against me, or if she resists the divorce settlement, I will unleash everything. At that point, consequences won't discriminate, and I'll expose everyone, including myself, if necessary. You both inflicted pain on me, and now it's my turn. Get him to the hospital before he bleeds out, and remember my conditions. I exited the same way I entered, ensuring the lock was secure before departing. I stowed the bat and gun in a duffel bag and slung it over my shoulder. Quietly and inconspicuously, I made my way out of the vicinity. As I rode the bike back to my office, I disposed of the bat and gun in separate locations in the river. Before my return, I discarded the surgical gloves I wore. Upon returning to my office, I discreetly stowed the bike in my car and resumed my place at my desk by 9 o'clock. I bid farewell to some of the 8 staff who were still laboring late into the night. To all outward appearances, my vehicle never left the parking lot, and I remained at my desk throughout the evening. In the event of an accusation, it would be their word against mine, with no tangible evidence to support their claims. By the time I arrived home this afternoon, chaos had unfolded. Carl had undergone surgery to repair his injured reproductive organ. A team of surgeons had to painstakingly reconstruct what remained, a mere fraction of its former size. He bore 18 stitches on his shaven head, a consequence of the concussion sustained from the impact. According to his account, the last thing he recalled was approaching his personal assistant's residence with some paperwork before waking up in the hospital. He claimed no memory of encountering anyone or of being struck. Sensing the precariousness of his situation, he wisely chose to remain silent, understanding the leverage I held over him and his career. Amanda, consumed by distress, remained tight-lipped about the incident. Her only assertion was that she heard the gunshot and found Carl lying injured outside, prompting her to rush him to the hospital without waiting for an ambulance. Neither could elucidate why Carl was found unclothed, and despite their steadfast adherence to their respective stories, Carl's wife remained unconvinced, posing a significant threat to his future. I spent the afternoon dismantling the surveillance apparatus, transferring all data to an encrypted cloud server, and disposing of the equipment. Any vestiges of evidence linking me to their affair were now securely stored in the cloud, beyond anyone's reach. Around 6 p.m., Amanda entered the living room to find me seated, nursing a bottle of my finest whiskey. I remained silent as she took a seat across from me on the couch, her expression shattered and despondent. Witnessing her in such a state, I couldn't help but feel a fleeting pang of sympathy. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she began to speak, her voice trembling with emotion. "John, I understand what you saw was devastating, but you need to believe me when I say I wasn't in love with him. I know how it looked, what I said. It must have hurt. Even in those moments with him, my thoughts were of you. I spoke to you within myself. Every action was for you, baby. When you were absent, the loneliness was unbearable, and Carl provided temporary solace. Please, you have to believe me." Her explanation left me speechless, grappling with the incomprehensible justification she presented. Apparently, she had been intimate with him while maintaining thoughts of me. Despite her words, doubts lingered, trust shattered irreparably. "Amanda, I've listened to your plea, but I cannot erase what I witnessed from my mind. Even if those words of love were intended for me, I cannot shake the feeling that they belonged to Carl. It's over, Amanda. 20 years of what I thought was happiness, tarnished by your boss's betrayal and your infidelity. We'll both carry the weight of your actions for the remainder of our lives. Thank you for the pain and anguish you've bestowed upon me. It's a souvenir I'll cherish forever," I retorted bitterly. "What happens now?" she inquired, tears continuing to cascade down her cheeks. "Well, you and I are finished. I'll never comprehend how you could betray me like this, or why. That's a burden I'll bear indefinitely. I won't expose your infidelity, as promised, but forgiveness is beyond reach. Janet and your parents will never know that they have a whore for a mother and a daughter. I'll let you explain why we're getting divorced, but I warn you, do not make me the bad guy. If you do, it won't end well, as I'll make sure everyone knows that you're nothing but a cheating adulteress. I'm putting the house up for sale, and you need to find a place to stay in the meantime. Since you're the one who screwed it up, you need to move out. I'm not asking. That's what you will do. Let me know where you want the divorce papers sent. Sign the papers and don't fight the divorce, or it will be painful for you and your boyfriend. Amidst her tears, she attempted to speak. He's not my boyfriend, and I don't love him. Can't we work this out? Is there anything we can do? I know it's too late after what I've done, but I can't live without you, and I'll do anything to keep us together. I never wanted to lose you. Please don't leave me. You know, Amanda, if it was just about you sleeping with him, maybe we could have sought counseling or worked through a breakup, but it ended when I witnessed you doing things to him that you would never do to me. It took my breath away when you told him you would never do that for me. Yes, I heard you say it. That alone extinguished any chance of reconciliation. But what truly shattered my love for you was the way you shared with him a love that was meant solely for me. The words you spoke to him destroyed us and everything I ever felt for you. And because of that, I can never take you back or trust in your love again. Your betrayal is unforgivable, and I want nothing more to do with you. Once the divorce is finalized, you'll be out of my life for good. And as for that scumbag, if he ever crosses me again, I'll make sure both of you regret it without hesitation. Despite hours of pleading for forgiveness, she left the following morning and sought refuge with her parents until the house sold. Over the ensuing week, the police interrogated me, attempting to elicit a confession. With the guidance of my lawyer, we made it clear that without evidence linking me to the incident, I would no longer cooperate without a warrant. With no evidence to support their claims and my solid alibi, they ceased their inquiries. The incident was eventually chalked up as a random burglary and assault. Amanda and her family incessantly begged for reconciliation. They professed her love for me and pleaded for forgiveness, proposing counseling and various other remedies. Yet, I ignored their calls and refused to entertain their pleas. I changed my phone number and severed all ties with them. Losing her tore me apart. Every moment without her was agonizing, but the memory of her infidelity and how she lavished her love on another man was insurmountable. Now, Amanda, a 42-year-old single mother, resides in a modest one-bedroom apartment, reliant solely on her income. The comfortable life she once knew has vanished. Her daughter and family have distanced themselves, holding her accountable for the demise of our marriage. Amanda found herself isolated, abandoned by Carl, who prioritized salvaging his own marriage. At work, Carl's treatment of her turned sour as he shifted blame onto her for his personal and marital woes. Unable to continue working alongside her, he demoted her to the administration area, offering no increase in pay. Her once esteemed position, working closely with one of the partners, was stripped away, and rumors spread about her past relationship with Carl, leading to mistreatment from her colleagues. Now confined to a monotonous and uninspiring job, devoid of any prospects for advancement, Amanda found herself in a downward spiral towards depression. With no friends to turn to, a failed marriage, and a family that held her accountable for the divorce, she plunged deeper into despair. Each night, she wept in solitude, longing for John with every fiber of her being. Her heartache was constant, her thoughts consumed by regret and loss. Despite Janet's attempts to support her mother, Amanda's downward trajectory continued, evident in her physical deterioration as she neglected her health, relying on alcohol to numb the pain. Refusing to care for herself, she insisted that without John, she had no reason to prioritize her well-being. When Janet sought advice from her father, he empathized with Amanda's plight, but could never overcome the betrayal, severing all ties with her. Meanwhile, Wendy pieced together the truth and exacted revenge on Carl, relegating him to one of the guest rooms and extracting a heavy toll for his infidelity. Embracing her newfound freedom, Wendy immersed herself in a series of relationships with younger men, keeping Carl around solely to foot the bills. Although they maintained a facade of togetherness for public appearances, they lived separate lives. Carl's actions had irreversibly altered the course of his life, leaving him incapable of finding love or solace with another woman. The weight of that pivotal moment, when his world shifted due to his lust for another man's wife, would haunt him for eternity. Despite his seething animosity towards me, several months passed without incident. However, fate had its own plans. Later that year, during a night out with my colleagues, I was ambushed and savagely assaulted outside a bar, enduring a brutal beating until my friends intervened. The assailants fled before the authorities arrived, leaving me hospitalized with broken ribs and 20 stitches. It was evident that they harbored a lethal intent, and had it not been for the timely intervention of my companions, their vicious assault might have claimed my life. I knew in my bones that this was retribution orchestrated by Carl, and I wasn't the least bit surprised. 6 weeks elapsed, and as I recuperated, I resolved to confront Carl. Placing a call to his office, I requested to speak with Mr. Phillips. "Mr. Phillips, please," I addressed his secretary. "I'm sorry, he's currently in a meeting. May I take a message?" she responded. "Yes, please inform him to meet me at the French Deli across the street at 1 p.m. this Friday," I instructed. "I'm afraid I don't schedule appointments for Mr. Phillips," she replied. "Simply relay the message. Write this down, 1 p.m. Friday, French Deli, be there alone. John, just hand him that note and he'll understand its significance. Thank you," I concluded. Part 4. Friday Lunch. Seated at a table with a clear view of the entrance, I watched as Carl entered the French Deli alone. His eyes locked onto mine as he approached the table. "Sit down," I instructed, my tone firm. "What do you want?" he spat. Ignoring his hostility, I began, "Thank you for coming today. Your associates certainly did a thorough job on me, but unfortunately for you, they didn't quite finish it. By ignoring my warning about seeking revenge on me or my family, you've left me with no choice but to take action." I handed him a folded piece of paper and continued, "Here is a link to a website that's been specifically set up for you, Carl. Don't bother attempting to shut it down. It's operating out of Syria with 3 redundant servers spread across different locations. It's untraceable, and even if you were to locate the initial server, the chances of finding the other 2 are slim to none. You're in serious trouble, and I hold all the cards. That's the website address. Take a look when you return to your office." I've deliberately obscured Amanda's face, as she shouldn't have to suffer for your transgressions. She's endured enough already. Once you've perused the website, I want you to contemplate how your colleagues at the firm will perceive your actions, how your wife will react, and the impact it will have on your children, friends, and family when they stumble upon the 2 hours of incriminating footage. I intend to distribute these videos across several popular platforms, along with your name, profession, address, and phone number. Carl's anger simmered beneath the surface. "You've already destroyed my life, and I'll never be the same, especially sexually. Cease this madness, or I assure you, you'll regret it." "You see, Mr. Phillips, that's precisely why we're here today. I'm here to bring an end to this. You've stripped away the most valuable thing in my life, my wife. You've shattered our 20-year marriage, and I refuse to let you walk away unscathed. I'm willing to risk whatever consequences you throw my way because I fully intend to exact revenge for the beating your associates inflicted upon me." "All right, calm down. What are your terms for making this situation disappear?" Carl interjected. "I have 2 non-negotiable demands," I stated firmly. "Firstly, you must cease any acts of retaliation against me or anyone in my circle, including Amanda. Secondly, you must deposit $1 million into this account by the close of business on Friday. If the funds aren't transferred by Friday at 9 p.m., I will take decisive action. I know your net worth, and I also know what I could potentially gain through legal means, so consider this modest sum I'm requesting as a gesture of goodwill." "And how can I be sure you won't ruin me regardless?" Carl inquired warily. "You won't. My word is my bond, and you'll just have to trust me on that. But let me be clear, if you fail to comply, there's a 100% certainty that this website will become infamous by Saturday morning. By the way, do you know how I discovered your affair with my wife? I paused, letting the question linger in the air. No, I was curious about that, Carl admitted. It was at your last company dinner. I caught that smug smirk on your face after that dance with my wife. Your arrogant grin set off alarm bells, prompting me to dig deeper into your affair and ultimately seal your fate. You were one of the most conceited individuals I've ever encountered, and I hope you endure the consequences for the rest of your days for what you've done to my once happy marriage. Epilogue. The funds were transferred, and we proceeded to sell the house, dividing the assets between us. Amanda would have enough financial stability to lead a comfortable life, provided she continued working or found another partner. As part of our agreement, Carl ensured her employment, but their relationship remained strictly professional. Amanda never remarried, seldom ventured into the dating scene, and lived with the weight of the pain she had inflicted upon both of us. Losing her marriage and the love of the man she envisioned spending her life with left her isolated and despondent. She passed away before reaching her 50th birthday, a shattered and melancholic soul. Only her daughter Janet attended the somber occasion of scattering her ashes. Meanwhile, I carried on working for a few more years before retiring to a serene oceanfront town. I found companionship in a kind-hearted woman who stimulated me intellectually, yet I never managed to replace the unique love Amanda once bestowed upon me. We never communicated again, and my knowledge of her fate came solely from Janet, whom I cherished dearly. Although we conversed daily and maintained a strong bond, Janet seldom broached the topic of her mother, aware of the enduring pain I harbored. While Amanda's passing brought a sense of closure, it also served as a poignant reminder of the deep wounds I carried with me. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.